Oh man. Have you ever laughed unconditionally for 5 minutes straight? Well, before having my conversation with James Hazelrig, who's the author of the Little Book of Laughnosis, I'd never done that in my life either. And what happened is just an absolutely amazing conversation that breaks down laughnosis, which is a combination of laughter, yoga, and hypnosis. So in this conversation, you'll hear a little bit about both of those things. James actually teaches me a laughnosis technique that's about almost 5 minutes long of just constant laughing on purpose in a slightly different way throughout the body that can actually help to change someone's negative body image. And it's also just hilarious. James also tells us a little bit about how he started to collaborate with a chiropractor to help people even more with using hypnosis and chiro, which is really cool because I'm a physio and this is something that I was really excited to talk to him about. We finish off with our word of the year, and James picks a really good one. And before we get into the conversation, I just want to give a quick plug for what I'm up to as well. For all the details, you can check out www.rethinkpainworkshop.com. Right now, I am now providing private and ACC physiotherapy sessions based in Whakatane, New Zealand, but also online for anyone living in New Zealand. I'm really excited about being able to expand my reach to be able to help more people. My next Rethink Pain workshop in Whakatane at Pofakato is February 14th on Valentine's Day, and that's a donation just to come and find out the fundamentals of the pain game and the Rethink Pain workshop. By One Day to Improve workshop on February 23rd, and that is my Rethink Pain workshop with dozens of techniques to improve how you feel, and you better believe that laughnosis is part of that. If you can't attend that, you can check out my online Rethink Pain workshop, and if you join before February 16th, you can actually attend James Hazelrig's live presentation on everything laughnosis and other ways to improve how you feel. That website that you can get all of that information is www.rethinkpainworkshop.com. Thank you in advance for interacting with this video, Still a little bit loopy from the laughing. This podcast, sharing it with your friends, giving it a great review if it's worthy of that. So enjoy episode 3 of the Rethink Pain podcast. Is laughter the best medicine? But first, cue the music, Evan.
Welcome to the Rethink Pain podcast, empowering mind, body, and spirit. And now your host, he threw up after going on the 4D Harry Potter ride, Danyel Degenhart.
Thank you for that, Evan. It was a great little tidbit, especially making us laugh right off the start. I'm here with James Hazelrig from Laughnosis. Oh, wow. There we go. Just laughing right off the start, getting thrown off. So you're a hypnotist in Austin, Texas, but you also have a couple books, one of them, A Little Book of Laughnosis. But before we get into that, just going from that intro, have you ever thrown up on a roller coaster?
Thrown up? No, not on a roller coaster. I once threw up on the International Bridge between Texas and Mexico on a New Year's Eve. And now I did have a really harrowing Harry Potter experience. I ended up getting a free ticket to a Harry Potter marathon in a theater. I did not realize that was going to be 20 hours straight of sitting in a theater with limited breaks.
Wow.
It was fortunately a theater where they take your order and bring you like real food. So, I didn't starve to death. But yeah, it was grueling. I think I might have rather thrown up on a 4D Harry Potter ride.
Fair enough. Yeah. Well, I would say grueling would be a good word for mine as well. And it was something that my wife was so excited about. It was the highlight of our trip, and she finished with it being the best moment of her life. She said possibly even better than getting married. And I was thrown off in the rubbish bin next to it. Yeah. But anyway, enough of that. Just figured we'd start with a good laugh because we're going to be talking about Laughnosis. Now, James, you hold multiple international hypnosis certifications. You have a master's degree in English, but in addition to that, you've been an instructor in lots of ways, a writer, champion storyteller, published author with a couple things, and a professional musician. But what I really love about you is that you don't take yourself too seriously. And the information I gave you is all on the about page of your hypnosisaustin.com. But then you go on to say, all right, that's as much writing like that as I can handle. Let's cut through the nonsense and get to the real me, shall we? I love that. And with your storytelling background, I wanted to get you to think of the first story of yourself that comes to mind that would give my listeners a better idea of the real you.
Wow, the first story of myself. See, that has me thinking back to childhood and the way that I was the youngest child, and there's actually 5 years between me and my closest sibling. So I was the baby. My father liked to say that I was raised by multiple grandmothers because all of my older siblings acted like I was their grandkid. The thing is, though, that whenever my family would laugh at a joke, and we all love jokes, we love puns. My father is well, he's passed away now, but he was an excellent storyteller and loved great jokes. And so anytime the family would laugh, I would start laughing along with them, even though I was too young to have gotten the joke. But I knew that now was the time to laugh. And so a lot of times then they would say, well, hey, James, explain why that was funny. And of course, I would invent some reason for it to be funny that was totally ridiculous. And everybody would laugh at that. So I came to the conclusion that I must be terribly funny. And we would have a great time with it. And so I loved to laugh. And, that's one of those things that, babies laugh and they don't have a sense of humor, but they love to laugh. And I think all of us as children, if we're within a relatively healthy environment, are going to love laughing. And at some point, we're so eager to become adults that we lose that childlike quality and we get self-conscious about laughing around others. And, it's really sad to me when I meet people who they're not able to laugh. So one of the things I like to do is help people discover their laugh again.
I love that. That is a perfect story, and that is a great way to get a little bit more background on you. Thank you about that. I first heard you speak on Mike Mindell and Chris Thompson's podcast, the Brain Software podcast. And you brought up Laughnosis at that point, and they went through and did one of your bilateral stimulation activities. And I was hooked right from that moment. I went and I've been using just that one activity with my wife when we're having bad days, and if I'm doing it within a group setting for my workshops or presentations, or even just a meeting. If the energy is low, I'll just be like, all right, I think we need to do some Laughnosis.
That's great.
And it's even gotten to the point that the last podcast that I did with John Moore, and he was interviewing me on the Rethink Pain podcast, he asked what my favorite activity was to improve. And of course, Laughnosis came up to mind. So I taught him, and I love having recordings of Laughnosis. Like it's always entertaining. So that's what I want to talk to you a little bit. It's more about right off the start is what is Laughnosis?
So Laughnosis is the fusion or the crossroads of laughter yoga and various means of unconditional laughter and hypnosis. Of course, both of those are terms that we're probably going to have to unpack a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Which one should we unpack first?
Let's go with the laughter yoga.
Okay, so laughter yoga is a magnificent tradition that was started by a medical doctor in Mumbai, India, named Madan Kataria. About 27, 28 years ago, somewhere right around there. And so Dr. Kataria wanted to test the premise that laughter is the best medicine. He had read Anatomy of an Illness by Norman Cousins. And of course, Norman Cousins was dying from a debilitating chronic illness. And he wrote down everything that worked for him. And he found that if he spent 10 minutes laughing really uproariously, a good strong belly laugh, that 10 minutes of doing that would allow him to have 2 hours of pain-free sleep. And this was when morphine was no longer helping him.
Wow.
So, so Dr. Kataria said, well, let's put this to the test. Let's see what happens if we get people together and get them to laugh every day for about an hour. So he invited a bunch of people down to the park, and because they needed to laugh, they started telling jokes. And that's usually what people think of when they think about laughter. They think about humor and wit and cleverness and jokes. The thing is, though, that after a few days, they kind of ran out of good jokes. And they started turning to some kind of nasty jokes and mean jokes. And people started to kind of get their feelings hurt. People started kind of mocking and making fun of each other. And a number of people said, hey, this is going sour. You need to shut it down. And he said, I know there's got to be a way to make this work. Now, his wife, Maudry Kataria, was a yoga instructor. And she had noticed that when people were laughing, they were breathing very deeply. They were breathing with their diaphragm muscles, which of course is what one should do in yoga. And so she said, it's almost like they're doing breathing exercises. And, we don't have to get people to tell jokes to do breathing exercises. And he said, hey, what if we just laugh without anything being funny? So he went down and proposed this idea, and everybody went, well, that's a weird idea, but okay, let's try it. So they stumbled upon unconditional laughter. And, because when you laugh at a joke, that's conditional laughter. You're waiting for something to be funny to meet that condition that allows you to then laugh. And in laughter yoga, people who do laughter yoga tend to have great senses of humor. And personally, I love humor. I sing funny songs. I like to tell funny stories. But in laughter yoga, we engage in unconditional laughter. And so that took off from there. He codified a bunch of sort of laughter exercises, which admittedly are kind of silly. But when you're doing them, you're sort of laughing at yourself, which is generally, if you're going to laugh at something, being able to laugh at yourself is a very healthy way to do it. So you tend to start off with just an unconditional laugh, making a laughing noise, and pretty soon you feel a little silly about it, so you start laughing at yourself. You stop taking yourself so seriously. And then from there, laughter yoga exploded. There's all sorts of different people doing their own versions of it, their own variants on it. Other people have taken it into different realms. And it's in over 100 countries. There's laughter clubs where people get together and just laugh for about an hour. Yeah, and it's incredibly fun and incredibly enjoyable. It's also a mild form of exercise. which can be important for people who are facing certain health issues, but they still need to have some kind of exercise. Because it involves that deep belly breathing, it tends to help people get a lot more oxygen going in their bodies. So it's got just some simple physical benefits right there. Now, the thing is that laughter, smiling and then moving on into laughter, both of those have an impact not only on how you feel, but at the same time, of course, the actual brain chemistry going on. And it's really kind of silly to make a distinction between those two, because how you feel is the brain chemistry. You're feeling your own brain chemistry. Yeah. So the thing is that oftentimes in laughter yoga, we'll just kind of start off with a few simple exercises like, raising your eyebrows and smiling and making eye contact with each other. And of course, when you smile, especially with those raised eyebrows, you release endorphins, which are your natural painkillers, right? That means endogenous morphine is endorphin. You release dopamine, which is that mood enhancer. You release serotonin, which is your brain's natural antidepressant. And, I point out to people that in our culture, individuals take all kinds of different drugs basically to try to influence their endorphins, their dopamine, and their serotonin levels, and of course, then when you make eye contact with someone, you release some oxytocin, which you also get a big burst of when you laugh, especially if you laugh with another person. So you flood your brain with all of these wonderful chemicals. You're also getting more oxygen because you're breathing deeply with your belly. Now, when you breathe deeply with that belly, that also is the way that people breathe when they're relaxed. So it sends a signal to the brain that says, chill out, we're not being attacked by a bear. You don't have to have fight and flight, also known as anxiety. Yeah. That signal goes out through the whole body. And so it says, hey, since we're not fighting a bear, we can fight off disease as well. So the immune system gets improved.
I love some of the research that's behind the scenes for this. Like, I'm a geek when it comes to that science stuff. And there's the simple study where they just put a tongue depressor in between someone's teeth, holding, I know you can't see it if you're listening, but it's just clenching it between your teeth and sitting there for a couple minutes, and then doing blood levels before and afterwards, and noticing that those endorphins, or those feel-good hormones, are boosted by putting something clenched in between your teeth. And you're thinking, okay, these guys are in a quiet room, sealed off. What's happening? Well, the researchers were clever at turning on those muscles of smiling without the condition of it. So that was, they're having an unconditional smile in a way that produced some of those same feel-good hormones.
Yeah, and there's a number of really fascinating studies with that kind of thing, including also subjective evaluations, like how much fun is a game, and people find that they enjoy the game more when they're holding that thing in their teeth that forces their mouth into a smile. And of course, likewise, raising the eyebrows, it's called the surprise brow. And it's literally, whoa, something isn't what I thought it was. I need to open up my senses as much as possible and reevaluate the world. So they found that when your eyebrows are up, you're more willing to consider someone else's opinions than when your eyebrows are furrowed and down, like you're in a fight where you have tunnel vision. And so it's just really kind of amazing. And I think one of the underlying ideas that we play with a lot in hypnosis, which we'll get to, a lot of it boils down to the as-if principle. and Brian Wiseman, if I'm remembering his name right, MD, PhD. I think he's a PhD. He's a psychologist. Recently published a book called The As If Principle, which goes all the way back to William James, the father of psychology, who said, we don't smile because we're happy because we smile. And so there's all sorts of really interesting things. It ties in, of course, to the power pose research that Dr. Amy Cuddy did at Harvard, where she found that standing in certain poses for 2 minutes or more, standing basically in a pose of confidence, would activate feelings of confidence and decrease feelings of stress. And likewise, they checked the saliva on that, found boosts in testosterone, lowered cortisol. And so one of the fun things, of course, one of those power poses is the victory pose, which is putting your arms up in the air, right? Like you've just won a race. Or, in Texas, that's an important signal in the national religion of Texas, which is football. A touchdown is two hands straight up in the air. It's victory.
Yeah.
And so one of the really fun traditions, and I don't know how it got started, but one of the fun traditions in laughter yoga is when you finish an exercise, the way that the laughter leader signals to everyone that it's time to end the exercise and refocus, because we try to speak as little as possible in laughter yoga. Yeah. They'll explain it and then clap 3 times, and unless the game requires some sort of speech, until it's time to end, we try to not speak any intelligible languages. Now, sometimes we speak gibberish, which is an amazing experience all on its own. But the fun thing that we do right at the end, the leader claps their hands twice in front of their face, saying, very good, and then lifts their hands up in the air and says, yay! And then everyone joins in on that, very good, yay! And I love the fact that they're incorporating a power pose right there. So it's not only the endorphins, dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and additional oxygen, the boosting of the immune system, but also increasing your self-confidence and lowering your stress.
Yeah, I love these things that they're useful models to go by, and the idea that it may not be for everyone to even clap 2 times and say yeah might be a big push. Yeah. But if you understand that physiological response, then it gives that opportunity for someone to attempt it and to just put the hands over and just, yeah.
Right. Yeah. And you bring up a very good point. Laughter yoga is not for everybody. There are some people for whom it's too big a stretch, or it's going to cause them to be uncomfortable in some way. And actually, one of the basic ground rules of laughter yoga, which we explain at the beginning of every session, is something that I love and I think is kind of very important and applicable here, and that's no new pain. So I always say to people, if these exercises cause some sort of new pain for you, physically or emotionally, feel free to sit out. You are still participating if you sit in the corner. I would encourage you to perhaps raise your eyebrows, form your face into a smile, and if you wish to, laugh at how silly we're being out here. And when I've taught laughter yoga, for instance, in recovery centers where people are recovering from drug and alcohol addiction, there's usually 1 or 2 who are like, I ain't doing that. That stuff's way too weird. And they'll sit there in the corner. But at the end, they're like, I really had an amazingly good time and I feel a lot better than I did. I said, yeah, because you've been releasing those chemicals. And over time, some of them will step in and try it. I don't use laughnosis with every client that I work with, even though it has many different applications. Now, there's some who say, ooh, I don't laugh enough. I say, okay, well, I'm going to give you the homework of practicing laughing unconditionally, and I'm going to give you some exercises to use with it. So I guess that's laughter yoga
Yeah.
in a nutshell.
I think that's a really good background on that. And then the other part, the gnosis, is the hypnosis. And as a physiotherapist, I've been learning and training for the last couple of years, just independently, and from the teachings from Mike Mandel Hypnosis, as well as lots of different other books and things. The term hypnosis is one that, for the general public, it has many different meanings, and even within the hypnosis world has many different meanings. But if you were to explain it to my grandmother, who recently just turned 93, happy birthday, Grandma. But in that simple way, what is hypnosis to you?
So, of course, the first thing I always tell people is it's not what you've seen on TV. Hypnosis, in my opinion, my favorite definition, and by the way, if you ask a dozen hypnotists to define hypnosis, you will get 24 definitions and a fist fight. People get very, very passionate about this, and there's many different ways of looking at it. But I think of hypnosis as the art of getting real results from imaginary or suggested events. And so most people have had the experience of crying while watching a movie. Mm-hmm. The thing is that when we go to see a movie, we know the movie isn't real. We know that the people on the screen aren't really married to each other. We know that that's not really their child. That's not really their dog. We know the dog didn't really die, because we don't kill animals to make movies, right? That's wrong. It doesn't matter, though. When the imaginary dog dies, everyone cries, and they cry real tears. They feel real emotion, because the unconscious mind, that part of your mind that keeps track of all of your habits, that part that keeps your heart beating when you're not thinking about it, or even when you are, it keeps you breathing when you're not thinking about it. It reminds you to eat. It makes you sleepy when you need to rest. That unconscious mind doesn't know the movie isn't real. Mm-hmm. So you respond with real sadness, and you have a physical response of real tears, all from an imaginary experience, because the unconscious mind, and in some sense the body, doesn't know it's not real. Now, the fascinating parallel to laughter, of course, is that your body doesn't know the difference between unconditional laughter and conditional laughter.
Right.
So it really doesn't know the difference of, I'm smiling because I just saw a good friend of mine, and I'm smiling because I decided to smile. So both of these are ways to take control of that amazing pharmacy that resides in our heads, and to some degree in our guts and many other parts of the body. Don't quote me on this. I think I read somewhere recently that there were more serotonin receptors in the intestines than in the brain.
Yeah, 90% you are correct in that. I believe it's 90% of serotonin is in the gut, which is why the microbiome and nutrition and diet is actually a huge thing when it comes to your ability to feel that serotonin and to regulate your like you said at the beginning, serotonin is that natural antidepressant, and also can be a pain reliever as well. A lot of the medications, they work to do that. So that, you're right in the gut. So it's not just the brain, it's everything, but the brain is what we're kind of more when we're talking about hypnosis.
And we tend to think, we think about our brain. Our brain likes to think it's in charge. But so both laughter yoga and hypnosis, like I said, through using the royal road of the imagination, both of them activate that pharmacy within our body that help us to feel better, to heal better, to enjoy life more. Now, there's a really there's several other, you know, kind of fascinating parallels, and there's a little hint of this in the laughter yoga literature. There's a little hint of you know, the things that really amaze me about it. And there's a set of laughter yoga exercises that they call value added exercises.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll give you an example. And this was the one that we were doing when the light bulb kind of went off for me. It's called red light, green light. And it's based on the popular children's game, where basically the leader of the game shouts green light, and all the kids buzz around the room like they're driving cars, going, nearly getting into wrecks and all that stuff, until the leader of the game shouts red light, and then you stop and you wait until the leader of the game shouts green light. You know, it's one of those things. A preschool teacher invented it to work the energy off the kids so they can go to nap, right? And it's actually, of course, one of those aspects of laughter yoga is silliness. It's play, because we lose track of play. They also like to include singing and dancing a lot in laughter yoga as well. That's the more active forms of it. So we were doing the laughter yoga version of red light, green light, in which when you get to the red light, you laugh uproariously. And so we were doing this, and all of a sudden I realized, wait a minute, what I'm doing is training my brain to laugh when I get to a red light in traffic and have to stop. Because what do most people do when we have to stop in traffic? We're like, ah, dang it, right? Or worse words. You know, most people start to get upset at it. And this is where we tie into another really fascinating aspect of hypnosis. Another way of looking at it is that hypnosis is self-directed neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity, of course, is that ability that our brain has to connect stimulus to response, to connect one thought to another, to literally strengthen the connection between the neurons in the brain, so that the neurons that fire together wire together. So we create these neural pathways all the time. We cannot help it. That's just what we do. And what I realized, of course, one of the ways we do this is repetition. The more times you walk a path in the forest, the more worn down it gets, right? Another way that we do this is through powerful emotion. So if you have a very powerfully emotional experience, that's going to be kind of like a bulldozer making that connection between these different things. So in laughter yoga, we were using this powerful emotion of laughing and the repeated practice of this exercise to build a neural pathway from the stimulus of red light or stuck in traffic or stopped to laughing, which is a better response than the response of frustration and anger that most people have. So, in fact, I've come to realize that the car is a great place to practice unconditional laughter. Because how many times are we driving along? We're like, oh man, I can't, you know. And I've started working. And look, I'm not a saint. I'm not a bodhisattva. I'm not perfect at this by any means. But on my good days, I remember to practice. If I start to feel angry at somebody in the car, I smile and laugh at how silly it is to get upset over this thing.
Yeah.
Right. Because of course doing that is causing my body distress, which is bad for it. Right.
Yeah. I love another connection between the laughter yoga and the hypnosis is, and what I actually got really excited about hypnosis is that it's these specific steps and processes and things that you can do to change how your body responds to things. I love that simple line of, it's not mind control, but how you control your mind. That
Yeah.
each of these little steps, like even just the laughing at a red light, if that was the big thing that everybody got upset at, and you went and did that, it would make a big, massive change. And it's a funny example and it's silly, but it's okay to have some of these silly types of methods and techniques with that neuroscience and process driven kind of approach.
Well, and the thing is that that laughing at a red light, that's pretty minor. Although I do know that there are actually a lot of laughter yoga practitioners who do this at every red light in life. And their kids often think they're crazy. But what I often explain to my clients when I'm teaching them various exercises, and some of them are laughter based and some of them are not. Some of them are physical based on the as if principle. Some of them are mental exercises. I always say to them, have you ever taken a martial arts class or learned to play an instrument? And the thing is, I say, okay, so if you go to a martial arts class, they kind of tell you how to stand if you ever have to get into a fight. And then they say, all right, so if somebody throws a punch at you, you need to use your left hand to kind of block and redirect. And then you need to step in with your right hand while punching, or step in with your right foot while punching with your right hand. Okay, so you know what to do if you ever get attacked. Just go home, you're done. That's not what they do. No, they have you practice it, and they have you practice it in a safe environment when you're not actually in danger. The same thing is true of people learning music. You go step by step, learning scales, learning chords, learning positions, things to do, and then you learn them. And then you do them in front of an audience when the pressure is on. You don't just step out to try to learn your first scale when you're standing there in front of a concert hall full of people. So I say it's the same thing. It's not enough to simply say, okay, well, when I get really stressed or I have really serious pain, then I'll try this laughing thing, right? Yeah. You want to build the neural pathways that make you good at it so that you build up those new responses. I mean, that's ultimately what martial arts is. It's building new responses.
I love that description, because just a couple podcasts ago when I had Neil Pearson on, he gave a very similar type of an approach. And and he used a dartboard as an example, that if you learned darts the first time, you might miss the board completely, but does that mean that you'll never be able to get a bullseye? And there's a whole metaphor and story with that as well. And it's wicked because it just shows that someone, if you're having persistent or complex pain, you need to practice these things when you're feeling good, and sometimes you need to stack these techniques together as well. And that's you might want to do some laughter yoga, but maybe put some incense on or some funny music, or have something else playing to get some of that conditional laughter in as well, maybe. And there's all these different ways, but the idea is that if it doesn't work the very first time, that's okay. But as long as you keep kind of working and practicing on that, I love that.
Yeah, and I love that idea of stacking the deck in your favor.
Yeah.
In my hypnosis office, I have this really cool 0G recliner that has these things that they call it massage. It's not exactly massage, but they vibrate on either side, and I have put headphones on people and I play really pretty music in the background. My voice is extra deep and echoey, and I've got a diffuser with, some lavender, these lights I can dim. I've got all this fancy stuff. And some hypnotists are like, you don't need any of that stuff. I'm like, no. You don't need it. I can do it all just with my voice. But I believe in stacking the deck in my client's favor.
Creating that experience. I love that.
Exactly.
So one of the things, because I went and read your Little Book of Laughnosis, which for anyone listening, check it out. It is a little book, but there's no fluff in it. It's just a bit of neuroscience, a bit of the backgrounds, a bit of what you talked about today, and then a bunch of exercises at the end to go through. And of all of the exercises, the bilateral stimulation is the one that I know from you on the other podcast and I've been using regularly. The one that really got me interesting is the body positive laughtermations. And I thought that this would be a really powerful one if someone's experiencing pain in order to rewire their brain. And I was wondering if you'd be able to teach that one to me and my listeners right now.
Sure. So this one kind of grew out of that exercise that I think you picked up from the Mike Mandel podcast when I was there with him and Chris Thompson. That was bilateral. And so a little background, the idea of bilateral stimulation is the idea that you stimulate the two sides of the brain by doing some sort of activity that uses each side of the body. So, and there's a long established practice, for instance, in some yogic meditation of breathing through alternate nostrils, which when I first read about it, I sat there, yeah, you're trying to do it too. Okay.
Yeah.
Now this is a bit of a visual. They go,
Oh.
So they use their thumbs to close off each nostril.
Okay.
Right. Which when I found that out, I'm like, oh, thank God, because I was trying to. But apparently, according to Peter Brown, MD, and the hypnotic brain, this bilateral stimulation of the two sides of the brain is a very trance-inducing experience. It changes your brain waves. And of course, we could spend a lot of time talking about trance and all that stuff. But and of course, what I love about that is they're not just doing the breathing, but it's also a back and forth motion physically. Mm-hmm. And there's a whole school of therapy that relies on people holding little things that buzz in their alternate hands, so that their attention is going back and forth, or they play alternate beeps in headphones, or the original version was looking back and forth with their eyes, which of course is the classic hypnotic pocket watch, looking back and forth, but it's not hypnosis, they swear. So that idea of bilateral stimulation, by the way, one of the things that Cool Chair does is it buzzes all down one side of the body and then buzzes all down the other. So I get a little bit of that going. So that's kind of the reason that we sort of go back and forth in this exercise. So I won't go too much into the theory of it here. Let's just get into the exercise itself. So we're going to begin with the toes and the feet. And so you would just sort of lift your left foot sitting down, like we are, though you could do this standing as well. You lift your right foot and set it down as you lift your left foot and set it down. And when I say lift, I should say you're going to lift the ball of your foot, keeping the heel on the ground. So you're just moving those feet up and down. And of course, when you're standing, that's pretty important. And this is a pretty mild exercise here, but as you're doing it, I'm going to give you a phrase to laugh. Now, the thing is that when we laugh a phrase, it's different from just saying it. And so if you've ever been in a situation, especially one where you weren't supposed to laugh, or perhaps there was something that was just so funny that you're trying to tell the story to your friends and you can't stop laughing even as you're saying it, that's what we're going for. Okay. So the sentence we're going to start with is, I love my feet. But as we lift those toesies up and down, we're going to say, I love my feet. Come on, do it with me. I love my feet. I love my feet. I love my feet. Okay, good. So now we're going to move over to kind of our calves, and this gets a lot of air moving,
Yep,
and a
definitely.
lot of, and it takes some dedication to put as much laugh into that sentence as you possibly can.
Yep.
Okay, so now, if you're standing, you might have to kind of bend down a little bit to do this. Sitting, it's a little bit easier. You could go to the calves or just to the knees, whatever you prefer. Let's go ahead and do calves. You're going to pat back and forth, and visually I'm kind of showing it. So the way to think about it is with the palm of your hand and the tips of your fingers. You pat the outside of your right calf.
Yep.
Then you move that hand away as you pat the outside of your left calf, and you go back and forth bilaterally, stimulating your body, saying, I love my calves.
I love
I love
my
calves. I love my calves. I love my calves.
I love my calves.
Move on up to the knees. I love my knees.
I love my knees.
I love my knees.
I love my knees.
I love my knees.
I love my knees.
All right, move on up to those thighs and just say, I love my
I
thighs.
love my thighs.
I love my thighs. I love
my thighs.
Now, sitting, this is a little weird, but standing, it's a little bit easier. Go to your butt, all right? Pat your butt on either side, or a bum, as they say in some parts of the world, and just say, I love
my butt.
I love my butt. I love my butt. Now, move to the belly. And patting either side. I love my belly. I love my belly. I love my belly.
I love
my belly. Moving on up to the chest, kind of like Tarzan, as I say the other way. I love my chest. I love my chest. Move on up to that neck, gently patting it. Remember, no new pain. I love my neck. I love my neck. I love my neck. I love my face.
I love my face.
I love my face. I love my face. I love my head. Tapping the top of the head or the sides. I love my head. I love my head. And then raising your hands in the air like you just don't care. I love my whole body. I love my body. I love my body. Very good. Very good.
Very good. Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh wow.
And I defy you to do that wholeheartedly. Releasing self-judgment and not feel better. Of course, we remember no new pain.
Definitely. I gotta admit that. So you said laughter yoga is a mild form of exercise. I'm pretty sure my abs have got more workout doing planks and doing.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm cramping by the end of this.
Oh yeah, I mean, and it's a thing that you get better at.
Yeah.
One of the challenges in the laughter yoga leader training was we had to sit and laugh for 10 minutes straight, or actually lie down on the floor just staring at the ceiling and laugh for 10 minutes and keep it up the whole time with no exercises, nothing weird, nothing fun. And it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard work. So yeah, you do get better at it as you do it. You develop those ab muscles. It's funny. I'm not. I've never been an athletic person. I'm not very physically fit and all that. But I can move my abdomen in and out like a belly dancer does,
Yeah.
because I've been laughing and singing. Of course, singing is another great one that uses those muscles.
Yeah.
And
Just even seeing, like, I just feel like I have the giggles right now, and I definitely feel,
which
I
is what
go,
happened.
exactly, yeah, and I definitely feel that endorphin rush, that euphoric kind of, like, oh man, and I'm watching you just calmly talk about this, which is even more, because you've been training yourself and know, all right, I'm going big, but then I can come back down. I haven't really come back down from that one yet.
Yeah, and so that's actually one of the other things that we do practice in the laughnosis trainings, the longer ones and things like that, is practicing coming down,
Right.
practicing being able to rein it in. Um, and so sometimes we'll do interval laughter, where we'll laugh for the count of 1, laugh for the count of 2, laugh all the way up to the incrementally up to 10, but stop in between each
Right.
time. And then um, because sometimes you do have to rein in that laughter.
Right.
Now, I tell a little story about an
Yeah,
amazing
definitely.
experience I had, and this was I'm pretty sure this didn't get into the Little Book of Laughnosis, and it's kind of weird. All right, so as a caveat, I will say that as I was growing up, someone very close to me had a lot of struggles with drug addiction, so I have studiously stayed away from any sort of illegal drugs. And I mean, I'm like more straight arrow than virtually anybody I know. I'm a musician and I don't even smoke pot. It's weird. I don't really drink anymore. But that's important to understand, because um, what happens in the story might cause people to say, "Were you on drugs?" I wasn't exactly, at least not any external ones. So I led this laughter yoga class. And at the end of a laughter yoga class, typically we engage in a little period of free laughter, or laughter meditation, they sometimes call it, where you just all lie down on the floor and laugh. You've been laughing a bunch of different laughs for about 45 minutes at that point, and you have you have the giggles at that point. And you lie down, and the way I like to look at it is, you've been laughing a lot of laughs. Now the laughter laughs you. And you get that experience. And of course, it's wonderful because you are spurred on by the sound of all of your compatriots laughing as well. And the thing is that a lot of times people who go to laughter yoga don't really know each other outside of that environment. So there's this one guy who was a regular, and he was what I like to call a laughter blaster. That's not my term. That's a popular one. One of those guys with a really loud, infectious sort of laugh. And he had a very serious job. He was like a bounty hunter or something. So he needed to de-stress. So we're lying there and we're all laughing, and I hear him just start this crazy giggle. And I pick it up and I'm thinking, man, I love his laugh. And then all of a sudden I thought, I love him. And this is agape, brotherly love. There was no sexual element to it. Not that anything's wrong with that, but I was just, wow, I'm like filled with love for this guy. And then I thought, I love everyone in this room. This is amazing. And so I had this feeling of just overwhelming love. And of course, I know it's the oxytocin talking, right? And so, we eventually start, toning a little bit. We bring it back down. We finish up the meeting and everything. And I go out, and Well, at this point, it's a little bit late. I haven't had dinner. I'm kind of hungry, and I'm like, oh man, there's this pho restaurant I really love nearby. So I stop in there to get some pho. I've never been embarrassed about dining alone in a restaurant. So I'm sitting there alone, eating my pho, and somebody laughs at another table, and suddenly I burst out laughing. Because oxytocin creates bonds between people, right? And you get to that state where somebody laughs, and you just naturally laugh right along. So I started laughing along with them, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, are they going to think that I'm totally crazy? And I'm like, well, one of the things we practice is laughing silently or very quietly. So I'm like, okay. So I'm doing my silent laughter there, enjoying my fun. Nobody's paying attention to me. And suddenly I think, I love everyone in this restaurant. I love them all. I don't know them, but I love them. And it was a weird feeling, right?
Yeah.
To just be overwhelmed with this love. And then as I was driving home, I started thinking about a few other laughter exercises, and I started laughing. And the laughter just took over. And so I was driving along in this car, and I'm laughing uproariously, and everything has become a massive joke. The street lights are hilarious and beautiful at the same time. And I've realized that I'm filled with a love for the entire cosmos, and at the same time, the entire cosmos is a massive joke. And I'm driving along, and I go, I'm high. I'm having a drug experience. And I had not consumed any external chemicals. Now, I've since learned, I recently read Michael Pollan's book about psychedelics, how to change your brain or how to change your mind, one of those two, in which he talks about the fact that psychedelics affect the serotonin receptors in your guts. And of course, oxytocin, and the description that so many of these people talk about when they're having therapy-guided psychedelic experiences is this feeling of amazing love for everybody. And I realized, wow, I got there through laughing. And so I don't know what the upshot of that is. I don't know what the meaning of that is. I do know that I eventually realized I had to pull it back down because, I needed to interact with the world. I actually questioned myself. Am I safe to drive like this? And I thought, I probably drive better when I'm high. So, yeah, that's how I knew it was weird. But to realize that we have that much control is really incredible. And people tend to feel powerless. And I know that, of course, pain is one of those things that so many people feel powerless against. And the answers were so often given, opioids, other things like that. And look, I don't fault somebody for wanting relief. But we often don't realize how much power we have to find relief in other ways, how much power we have to actually change our own minds.
Yeah, I think that's really important thing to know that you created that change on your own, that feeling on your own, and that's a phenomenal thing. And there's a with Neil Pearson, the conversation we had is one of the terms I use is movement medication. So instead of taking a Tylenol or an aspirin and calling that a painkiller, it's not to kill your pain. What it is to allow you to move, to do the things that you want in your life. And so that a term of movement medication, and that's it's okay to take those with that purpose and that intention to feel good, to do those, but know that there's things that you can do. We talked about stacking the odds. Well, you can take that, but also if you do something like smile, or then go to that next step and laugh, or to go to that next step and do some laughter yoga, those are stacking the odds in your favor in order to allow you to see the power of your own self to improve. I really love that. The other things with that I think I'm a little bit high right now from that.
Good.
But what I liked about that last technique, the body positive laughtermations, is you talked in the Little Book of Laughnosis that if you have a negative body image, this fosters that better relationship with your body. And with persistent pain, there's evidence with what David Butler, Lorimer Moseley call smudging. So in the brain, the idea, if I sprained my thumb really bad, that my fingers and my palm and my wrist might also become rigid and feel like it's 10 times bigger. And that's because the part of my brain that the thumb is depicting, it might smudge and interact with those other areas to make it so that it's not as understandable, and that makes you protect it. It's like if you think your hand is 10 times too big instead of just your thumb, then you're not going to be swinging it around like a Sasquatch hand. You're going to keep it in your body. And by going through and going through each of those spots of the body and activating those parts of the brain, but having that huge and positive feel-good hormone response while activating that part of the brain, that's going to help to rewire it in a really interesting way. So I really like that technique, and I'm definitely going to use it a little bit more going forward.
Cool. Yeah. And, I mean, one of the things too, this is another one of those connections between laughter and hypnosis. One definition of hypnosis is that we bypass the critical faculty, right? That's the part of the brain that says, are you sure about that? I don't know. I'm not sure I believe that, right? And of course, in hypnosis, our goal is to get past that part that checks to see whether or not you're going to take on an idea so that you can take on some better ideas. Well, when you laugh, you automatically disable that critical faculty, because you could not laugh at a joke if you were busy analyzing whether or not it was realistic.
Right.
And there have been some fascinating studies done actually showing that jokes can have a powerful suggestive effect. Sometimes it's a negative effect. For instance, people who read jokes about how people like them were supposed to be stupid actually scored lower on a general knowledge test afterward.
Right.
That's really kind of freaky, scary stuff. And I have a longer story. I won't tell it right now about actually influencing my blood flow by making jokes without realizing it. That's in the book.
In your book.
Okay.
We'll keep that one.
I don't remember what I put in the book.
Well, before,
a couple years ago.
So there's two more things I want to get through. We're coming up on an hour. Man, this is another awesome thing. And there's no time limits. We're just going to go through. I wanted to talk about your links on your Hypnosis Austin practice. You recommend combining chiropractic care with hypnosis, because the hypnosis for the mind and the chiropractor care helps to optimize the nervous system. And I was just wondering where that relationship started.
So that started with a chiropractor / massage therapist who established her office in my building.
Yeah, proximity.
Proximity. And I had actually met her somewhere else. I had met her at a networking group. And so I wanted to know her, because I wanted to know, can I refer people to her? Is she any good at what she does? So I went down and I had some massage and some chiropractic work done with her. And she said, I want to experience hypnosis. I want to know, what you do. So we traded sessions with each other. And I said, it really seems to me that there are a lot of ways that this can work synergistically. Because of course, the theory is that the relaxed body cannot hold an anxious mind. Mm-hmm. And yes, I train people to to, relax your arm. I do the progressive muscle relaxation techniques. But sometimes they're going to need something much more involved to really get the body working at its very best, kind of like the hardware needs to be optimized. And she said that likewise, she oftentimes would tell people, hey, you need to quit doing this thing. Right? And not just like quit smoking, which is fairly obvious, but quit moving in this way. And a lot of times they've built up a habit of moving in that way to try to protect a part of their body that's in pain. So we ended up teaming up on certain clients where they would go to her, they'd have a physical relaxation, a massage session, then she would do some adjustments. And she would specifically say, okay, now these are the things that I really need James to hit for you. And of course, it's wonderful working with a client who has just come from having a chiropractic adjustment and a massage. So we ended up with a number of clients who would just schedule us back to back.
Nice.
Coming into the building to do that. There's so many different ways to help people.
Yeah, I love that.
And we should stack the deck in their favor in every way possible.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and that's that reaffirms where I want to go with my physiotherapy practice as well. And within New Zealand, hypnosis, like most places in the world, is an unregulated profession. So as a physiotherapist, I need to show that I've had training in it and ongoing study and part of groups and communities and all of those things that you need to do just anyway. But that's one of the things that I want to bring more into that physiotherapy practice, because I've seen the power of having those two things connected. And so basically everything you just said just helps to reaffirm that. So that is awesome. Thank you for giving me that little bit of explanation.
Sure.
Even if it started just from proximity, I think it was a beautiful blend in order to make that happen. It's very cool.
Yeah.
So to finish things off, what I'm asking each of the Rethink Pain experts coming on is to think of a word of a year. Now, this is something that I started with Neil Pearson in January. And the word of the year is something that is that one word that you want to be or how you want to live your life. And it's an anchor to help to reinforce that direction that you want to take. And my word of the year for 2019 is authentic. And I'm pretty sure I nailed authenticity with just going out there and laughing as hard as I could with you, because I feel like that is going to help to reach and maybe put a couple people off, and that's okay. The people that we do reach today are the ones that I want to be communicating with us. So my word of the year is that authentic. And if you had to choose a word for 2019, what would yours be?
It's interesting because this is definitely one for 2019, not for my whole life. But right now, my word is remodel. In a very real sense, my wife and I right now, we're having our bathroom remodeled. Which means that we've gone through, we found some weak spots where there was rot, where there was mold, and we've had all that stuff torn out. And had things rebuilt. At the same time, we also said, hey, this is a perfect time to repaint the bathroom. We liked the color that it was, but let's have a new color. Let's have a new, fresher appearance. We could have kept the old sink, but hey, there's this other cool sink we like, so we're bringing in this newer, better sink. Other things we're keeping because they're working great for us. And so in this process, it's kind of similar to where I feel I am right now in my life. I'm examining a lot of things and saying, okay, maybe this thing that was working out for me for a while, maybe it's time to let that go. Maybe it's time to notice the things that I can hold on to and build well on. And it's also the time to think about some new big changes, big introductions have coming into it. And it is a difficult, sometimes unpleasant process. Those of you who watch the video will notice that I have not shaved my cheeks in like well over a week, because I don't have a good sync with a mirror where it's convenient to shave my cheeks and to shave my neck. Oh gosh, my neck. And we have access to a shower, but it's not the best. And so it's been a challenging experience, but I know that at the end we're going to come out with something that's much better and something that's going to last through many years. So that's really kind of where I feel my life is right now, and I like this idea of remembering that I'm remodeling things right now.
I love that. I love that. That is so awesome. Thank you for that.
And of course, NLP geeks will love, the model aspect of it too. So we'll let that ride for them.
Yeah. And the test of a good model is its effectiveness. So I wish you good luck in the remodeling of the bathroom and also your year. It's going to be awesome. So with bringing you on the podcast, that means that on Saturday, February 23rd, 9 a.m. New Zealand. That's Friday, February 22nd on 2 p.m. Austin. You are going to be my expert giving a presentation for the people who have subscriptions of my online Rethink Pain Workshop. So to get access to that, it's at www.rethinkpainworkshop.com. And anybody who subscribes in before your presentation will get a link and be able to watch that, which is going to be awesome. We're going to be talking a lot of stuff that we did today, and a little bit extra and a couple little secrets and surprises, I'm sure, along the way too. And then after that presentation, I'll be recording it and posting it on so that people who hear this 6 months, a year down the line can still get access to that, which is going to be awesome. But I want to see, there's a couple things that I know that you have coming up and that you're excited about. And what are those things?
So just a few days after we do that, I'll be flying out to beautiful Las Vegas and presenting at the International Certifying Board of Clinical Hypnotherapy, the ICBCH conference, which is held in conjunction with HPTI, the Hypnosis Practitioner Training Institute. Both of those organizations run by my good friend Richard Nongard. So we're going to have 3 fantastic days, that Monday through Wednesday, the 25th through 27th of February. We're going to gather at the Orleans Hotel in Vegas and really focus in on how to use hypnosis to help people change their lives. Some conferences also look at the stage and entertainment side, and those things are great, but here we're really just going to get the change workers in there, the therapists, the counselors, and we're going to combine our knowledge and help out. And of course, the things about that, it's not just the presentations, it's that camaraderie. It's getting together with all the people in the evenings over breakfast, the conversations in the hallways that really are just life-changing and inspiring. So I'm really stoked about getting to go to that.
Nice. That is awesome. And you also have your Little Book of Laughnosis that you can get on Amazon, and your Laughnosis course. What is that one called?
Yeah, so it's that's a good question. It's the online Laughnosis training course.
That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, and I can send you a little bit more information on how to find that.
Yeah, I'll put that all in the show notes.
Yeah.
And that's the course that anybody who gets the online joins in on the online Rethink Pain Workshop will get a discount to that one, which is awesome. So thank you very much for supporting our community in that way too.
Yeah, well, you're doing great things.
Appreciate it. Thank you. So I think that is everything for today. That was a phenomenal hour that I'm definitely going to be on a bit of a buzz for the rest of the day. Hopefully
Thanks,
anyone
me
listening.
too.
Yeah, hopefully that vibe is going off into the listeners as well. So thank you again, and you have yourself a great day.
All right, you too. Thanks so much.
Thank you for interacting with this podcast, giving it a review, sharing it with your friends and your family, and check out www.rethinkpainworkshop.com for all the information about the different workshops and stuff that I'm doing, and the presentation that James Hazelrig is doing. It's not the date that we actually talked about in the interview. It is what I said at the beginning, February 16th. And that's just a bit of a clash of the schedule on my part. So I apologize for the miscommunication there, but hopefully we'll all see you in that presentation. Until next time, keep living and loving life to its full potential.